Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised.
What if the future you, with the amazing sex life you've always wanted, isn't so different from who you are right now? Today, I'm going to guide you through a gentle, eye-opening exercise to help you shift your thoughts and start living into that vision. Take a breath and let's begin. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the podcast for Catholic women that helps you improve your sex life, strengthen your marriage, and embrace God's design for love. My name's Ellen. Let's get started. Today, I want to take you on a mental exercise. So just follow along. Feel free to close your eyes if it is helpful to you. But I think this mental exercise is really going to help us recognize that what we want in our sex life is not actually that far away. And we have incredible tools, particularly in our mind, to have the sex life that we would like to have. So I want you to think about, what would an amazing sex life be for you? And maybe even like grab a notebook. I mean, maybe you're listening to this doing chores, so you can't grab a notebook, but like, just like mentally, what are the qualities of an amazing sex life? What is it that you imagine an amazing sex life to be? Maybe it is that your husband always initiates with certain words. Or maybe it's that you are immediately interested in sex as soon as you think of it. Or that it's easy to get aroused, or it's easy to reach orgasm. Or maybe just that you look forward to sex. Maybe that's what having an amazing sex life looks like for you. And those are just a couple examples. I hope that some things popped into your head. And now I want you to think about the version of you that has that amazing sex life. Like, who is she? Who is she? What are some of her qualities? Is she confident? Is she joyful? Is she free? Is she easygoing? Is she powerful? Is she sexy? What are those qualities? And then I want you to now think about, what does she believe about sex? What are her beliefs about sex? Does she believe that sex is bad and dirty? No, she absolutely does not, right? So like, what does she believe about sex? Does she believe that sex is fun, that sex is pleasurable, that sex is unitive, that sex is a way of communicating with her husband? Like, what are her beliefs about sex? All right. Feel free to pause the podcast episode now, if you need to think through those things, because now I need you to have those things that you thought about for the next part of the exercise. All right. So now we thought through what kind of qualities that future version of you has, the version of you that has an amazing sex life. We know the qualities that she has, and we know what she thinks about sex. Now, we know those things. You have complete and total access to thinking, feeling, and acting in all of those ways. You can do that right now with absolutely nothing changing in your sex life. Right? So if one of the things that you thought about is like, that future version of me, she thinks that sex is fun. You have the ability, you have the permission, you absolutely can think the thought, sex is fun. You can. Maybe she thinks that sex is pleasurable. She experiences sexual pleasure. Now, there's two different phrases that I said there, right? She thinks that sex is pleasurable. She experiences sexual pleasure. If you yourself have not ever experienced sexual pleasure, it can be very, very hard to think that sex is going to be pleasurable, right? But maybe that future version of you does think that sex is going to be pleasurable. You have the ability, and actually this is something that I talk about in the orgasm course, and we really dive into this quite a bit deeper, is that what you anticipate about sex is what's going to come out. So if you anticipate experiencing an orgasm every time that you come into sex, you are far more likely to actually experience an orgasm. If you anticipate not experiencing an orgasm during sex, you will not experience one. That is absolutely how powerful your brain is. Okay. So you have all these thoughts about sex. And now you've thought about what the future version of you that has an amazing sex life, you have all of her thoughts too. And now I want you to take your thoughts and change them to her thoughts, because that woman is you. That future woman who has an amazing sex life is you. And you have the ability to think those thoughts. Now, some of those thoughts might be hard to think. And so having a bridge thought can be really helpful, right? So if your thought going into sex right now is sex is not pleasurable, I do not receive an orgasm during sex. If that's your thought going into sex, and future you's thought is sex is pleasurable, I have an orgasm every time that I have sex, there's a wide chasm gap between those two things. And so a bridge thought is something that can help us like bridge that chasm. And so something like, I am learning how to have pleasurable sex, or I am working toward having pleasurable sex. That can be super helpful. Now, if you have an even more negative, if you're further from pleasurable sex, right? So if you're going into sex thinking something along the lines of sex is painful, sex is disgusting, sex doesn't feel good, if that's your thought, then we need to shift neutral first before we even get to pleasure. So going from, sex is disgusting, if that's our thought about sex, then we need to shift to sex is something that I do, right? This is a very neutral thought. Sex is something that I do. Sex is something that I do with my husband. Sex is something that my husband and I have, right? Super, super plain neutral thoughts. And that can help us to disintegrate the negative thoughts that we have about sex. And so once we get to this neutral place with sex, then we can start building on and working toward sex is something pleasurable. Sex is something good. Sex is something that I enjoy, right? Because we cannot jump from sex is disgusting to I love sex in an instant. Like that's impossible. It took me months, years. It took me so long to like unravel, untwist this like sex is disgusting thought pattern that I had. Okay. So bridge thoughts, neutral thoughts can really help us in shifting this. Okay. So we have these thoughts. We have every ability to think those thoughts. They're simply thoughts, right? They're simply thoughts. I have the ability to think right now that I am going to go on an amazing 5-star month-long cruise through the, Riviera Maya. I can think that thought all I want. I can daydream about that, whether or not it's actually going to happen, right? I mean, I have zero plans to go on a month-long cruise through the Riviera Maya. That would be so cool, but I have zero plans to do that, but I can think it, right? It's simply a thought. Think about like, I have ice cream in my freezer right now. I can think the thought, I'm going to go get ice cream. That is different than me standing up from my chair, walking into the kitchen, getting the ice cream out, getting a bowl out, getting a spoon, getting the ice cream scooper, like getting it into the bowl, right? The thought is so much easier than the actual action. However, the thought leads to the action. Okay. But the thought is not the action. So that is something that like, it can be kind of hard to wrap your head around this, but the thought leads to the action, but the thought is not the action. So the thought is so much easier to think than actually doing the action. And so it's actually really easy to change your thoughts, to think a new thought, right? Okay. I've probably said the word thought like 100 times in 10 minutes of an episode. Okay. Now, I want you to, now that we've thought about what those thoughts are, we've thought about what we're going to start thinking instead of the thoughts we're currently thinking. Now, what I want you to journal about, just think about, maybe you're doing the dishes right now, is how would I act today if I actually believed that? How would I act right now in the next 5 minutes? How would I act? How would future me act in this situation right now if I had an amazing sex life? And maybe it wouldn't be very different than what you're currently doing right now. And that's the point. If you're sitting watching, if you're washing the dishes right now while you're listening to me talk to you, would the future you that has an amazing sex life, she would probably still be washing the dishes, right? If you're cleaning the house, if you're driving the car, hopefully you're not listening to this with kids in the car. If you are, I don't know, going out to dinner, eating your lunch, that future you would be doing the same things. The one that has an amazing sex life would be doing so many of the same things that you are currently doing. The thing that would be different is how she talks about sex in her mind. The thoughts that she has about sex are what are different, right? And then also what's different is how she approaches sex, right? But the point of what I'm trying to say here is that that future version of you that has an amazing sex life is not all that different from you right now. She thinks about some things differently, and then she acts on those thoughts. And so I also want you to think about, what are the actions that she would take on those thoughts, right? What would she do tonight? The one who has an amazing sex life, what would she do tonight? And then I want you to do that. Ooh. Did that feel a little scary? Right? Does the woman who has an amazing sex life, is she going to initiate tonight? Is she going to come up to her husband wearing a robe and nothing under it and say, hey, come upstairs? Is she going to text a flirty text in a few minutes to her husband, anticipating a couple nights from now? What is she going to do? And I want you to do it. And I want you to just rip the Band-Aid off. It's going to feel scary. It's going to feel vulnerable. It's going to feel like not you. Okay? This future version of you, we've just spent like 10 minutes talking about how this future version of you is actually not that different from you. But doing these actions is going to feel different than you. But I want you to remind yourself that she's not any different. She just has different thoughts, and that you have the ability to think those same thoughts that she does. So do it. Send the flirty text message, put on the lingerie tonight, set up the room, give him a call, plan sex for a few nights from now, whatever it is. I want you to do it. I want you to do what future you that has an amazing sex life would do. I want you to do exactly what she would do for the rest of the day today.
Thanks so much for listening. If you're ready to stop feeling confused or discouraged about sex and finally understand how God designed your body for real, beautiful pleasure, you need to check out the Orgasm Course for Catholic Women. I'll teach you the tools and the mindset you need to experience the intimacy you were made for, all deeply rooted in Catholic Church teaching. Head over to vinesandfullbloom.com/orgasm, and I'll see you inside.